Okay, let's cultivate our motivation. And by this time, we actually could have been in our next rebirth. Between the last teaching and this teaching, we could have died and woken up in another realm, experiencing who knows what. But instead, we're still in this body, still in this realm. We still have a mind that is interested in and eagerly wants to learn the Dharma. So we should really respect that part of ourselves, nurture that part of ourselves, because it's actually quite rare and quite special. And due to that eagerness and curiosity and enthusiasm for the Dharma, if we have the right external conditions so that we can meet the teachings, learn them, contemplate them, meditate on them, then we can really make a profound difference in the state of our mind in this very life. And so we should treasure and really rejoice at the possibility we have, not with arrogance, thinking we're better than others, but rather with a sense of humility, wondering how in the world we created the cause for having the present opportunities. And in that way to really have a strong determination to make use of our opportunities and not let our mind get distracted by all sorts of superfluous, glittering things that really don't have much meaning. But instead, to let our mind be entranced with the quote, glitter of bodhicitta and the wisdom realizing emptiness. And to be attracted to that and to want to learn those two things. And so with that kind of aspiration that wants to make our life meaningful for all living beings forever, then let us put some more drops in the bucket tonight by listening to and discussing the teachings on the precious Garland. Okay, so there was a question from last week that I thought I would start with this evening. So somebody said, you mentioned that while emptiness is the ultimate truth, it exists conventionally. Is this because there must be an object existing conventionally to have the quality of emptiness? No. Okay? Emptiness exists conventionally because conventional existence is the only type of existence there is. Okay? If something doesn't conventionally exist, and you want to say, oh, there must be another way it exists besides just nominally besides being fabricated by concept, that there must be some other way, then the only alternative is that it ultimately exists, or truly exists, or inherently exists. Okay, which means that it is independent of every other thing in the universe, and nothing exists that way. So since ultimate existence is impossible, the only choice there is that things conventionally exist, which means that they exist by being merely designated. Okay? So, sometimes, because the term for conventional existence can also be translated as obscured, obscured truth, something like that. So emptiness conventionally exists, but it is not an obscured truth. Okay? It's an ultimate truth because it exists the way it appears. Whereas conventional truths do not exist the way they appear. They appear truly existent, but they don't exist that way. Okay? And then this person said, does this thing about emptiness conventionally existing have anything to do with, in Tantra, the mandala rising out of emptiness? No, not really. When you visualize anything in Tantra, you're thinking that your wisdom realizing emptiness is manifesting as the mandala, and that all those things exist within emptiness, not separate from it. Okay? Okay. So then last week, Nagarjuna was giving some very good practical instructions to the king. So remember, he was telling him about the 4 ways of assembling disciples. Okay, what are they? First, generosity. Second, speaking pleasantly about the Dharma. Third, encouraging others to practice. And fourth, being an example, practicing what you preach, or at least trying to. Okay? So you can see that, that Nagarjuna is saying this to the king because a king has a lot of worldly power. So if you can influence somebody who's in a position of worldly leadership, that person can then influence a lot of people, and that can make a big difference. Of course, Nagarjuna is also talking to us because we can also influence a great number of people. But imagine, who I'm going to talk about, my 2 favorite people, if Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, could understand the Dharma, and they have no trouble expressing themselves and dominating the conversation. Imagine if they dominated that with the Dharma. Yeah? So you see why, the Nagarjuna is selecting somebody with some worldly power in the attempt to, use that person's position to influence a number of people. Yeah? That doesn't mean that Nagarjuna is playing favorites and that he's going to teach the king, but he's not going to teach us, because we don't have any power and we don't have any money, So it's not that Nagarjuna is playing favorites at all. and that we're being left out of it. So don't think like that. Okay? Then he went into some other qualities, 4 qualities to develop. So we talked about, what was the first one? First was generosity. Have you noticed how many times he speaks about generosity in Precious Garland? Again and again and again and again. Because that is the easiest thing. They say the easiest virtue for us to create. Actually, I find it pretty difficult. But, they say that it's the easiest one, So the Buddha talks about that so often. So there was generosity we discussed. Second one was, being truthful, being an honest person that others can trust, being somebody with integrity. So when you say that you're going to do something, people can believe you're going to do it. And, and when you tell them something, they can believe that to the best of your knowledge, you're repeating it as you heard it without exaggerating one aspect or another aspect. So that's pretty important. I mean, both of those qualities, you can see, they're important if you're a leader, but they're important to us too, aren't they, in our lives? To be generous and to be truthful. Yeah, if we aren't truthful, forget it, Nobody's going to trust us, and then we're going to be in big problem. Okay, and then there were 2 more. Yeah, what's the next one? Tranquility, and then wisdom. Okay, so we were on verse 137 on tranquility, right? Okay, so the verse reads, "It is profound to be tranquil. For its profundity, tranquility is highly respected. From respect comes glory and authority. Therefore, devote yourself to tranquility." So there's a kind of sequence here, okay? So tranquility or peacefulness, is a result of being conscientious of our physical, verbal, and mental actions, and pacifying anything that is, off the wall and inappropriate and so on. So being a person who's tranquil, who's subdued their body, speech, and mind, is actually quite profound, and somebody who has subdued themselves in that way has a certain energy, a certain aura, a certain vibe, around them, okay? And people respect that vibe, because the person has a peaceful demeanor. They aren't flying off the handle. They aren't laughing hysterically. They aren't, sobbing uncontrollably. They aren't screaming at the top of their voice and throwing things. So, their behavior and the whole energy around them is peaceful, and so other people respect them. Yeah? So subduing the 3 doors leads to having a peaceful demeanor, which leads to others respecting you, which leads to glory and authority. Glory, I'm not sure what glory means. Maybe it means, having a good reputation so that you can benefit others, but also authority. And here, it doesn't mean authoritarian. It means you have, because of the way you are, people want to listen to you. Yeah. And so we can see that in our own lives, that actually we're not very objective. We listen to some people, And other people can say the exact same words, and we just shine it on. We don't pay any attention at all. So how something is said, the demeanor of the person, makes a huge difference whether other people pay attention to them and lead and listen to them. Yeah? So we gain some kind of authority to be able to influence others in a personal way, when they respect us, and they respect us because we've subdued our body, speech, and mind. So you see the sequence that way? I thought that was quite interesting. Now, how do we subdue our body, speech, and mind? Yeah, so first step is what they call binding the doors of the senses. Okay, they talk about this in the Pali tradition quite a bit. It's also in our tradition, but the Mahayana tends to emphasize, the mind a lot and transforming the mind. And sometimes I think that leads us to neglect being aware of our body and speech. Yeah? And so this whole thing of what they call binding the senses, is being aware of, what are my eyes looking at right now? What are my ears paying attention to? What am I smelling? What am I tasting? What are all the tactile sensations that I have? Because we beings in the desire realm, we're totally captivated by sense objects. We're totally distracted by them. And so if we don't bind the senses, then our senses are out there, I want to see and experience and feel everything. And of course, with that kind of attitude towards the external world, since there are unlimited sense objects out there, then our mind is perpetually running around from one of them to the next. Generating attachment, getting angry, feeling bored, having lots of opinions about everything we contact, and here it not only means the objects, but, other people can become they're objects of our senses too. We see them, we hear their voices, okay, we smell them, we feel them, so, we can also, we're just totally influenced by all these things. So if we don't have any sort of introspective awareness about what our senses are doing, and we don't have introspective awareness because we lack conscientiousness. We just don't care what our senses are doing. Then, our senses are all over the place, and as a result, our mind is all over the place. Okay? So you see this sometimes when you'll see it at the end of retreat when you go out. Yeah? People who have been at the Abbey, even when we're having in the middle of summer when it's very active, when they leave, sometimes they're blown away just because of, what happens to their mind when they're in an environment where their senses can roam the world. Yeah? A few of you left last summer. Yeah? Did that happen to you? Yeah, it did. Big time, didn't it? And so this is why they talk about binding the senses, really pulling that energy inside and then using it, to focus on the Dharma instead of, oh, look at that color orange, that's so good. Look at that person, boy, that one's really good looking. What kind of food? Oh, there's chocolate cake, the dark chocolate cake. Oh, I like that. How can I get more of it than other people get. And what movie's playing tonight? And then I want to go to a concert and I want to hear my favorite music, you know? And then I want to see all my old friends because they say such nice things about me. They ask me questions. I'm kind of the star of the show. It's really exciting. And then we can go hiking. We can go camping. Maybe even, you know, let's take a trip to Tahiti or Bali. Wow, I've heard so many things about those places. We can go there. And, you know, I have a friend from 2nd grade who's making jewelry in Bali. We can go stay with her. And, you know, Bali, wow, I mean, they've made so many movies about that. Let's go on there. I hear they have some Buddhism in Bali. Yeah, maybe we'll check that out. But first, we'll lie on the Bali beaches, you know, because that's really famous. You know, and then off you go, right? Yeah? Okay. And then you come back, yeah, with all your stories. Oh, I left the Abbey for my 2 months checking out what it's like to be at home. Let me tell you, it was like I laid on the Bali beaches. I even made a short trip to Tahiti. I went to India, but I only stayed at the Oberoi and ate the good food there. I didn't go into the slums and everything. That's not so good. You might get sick. But I had such a good time, and I was with my old friends. And, you know, you should see all these clothes I bought, these Balinese clothes, these Indian clothes. Fantastic, so colorful, so great. I got some jewelry, and look at my pictures. Here, look at my pictures. Can you see? There's me doing this, and there's me doing that, and there I am, you know, here. And you can even hear my voice when I was talking to some people. Okay, so, and then you die, right? Yeah, you get Hep B, you get who knows what, yeah? Okay. So, you know, but it's interesting in the world, that kind of thing gets you a really good reputation. Yeah, I mean, when I traveled overland from North Africa to India in 1973, and when I came back, I brought all these souvenirs, Buddhist things, because I was in, the last place we were in was Nepal, so I got all these Buddhist things. I had no clue what they meant, but they were really far out, and I hung them all over my flat so that people, my friends, would come visit me and go, where did you get those things? And since in those days hardly anybody had been to India and Nepal, I could say, I traveled overland to India and Nepal and I got them there. Yeah. Aren't I superior? Yeah. Do you want to hear some of my stories? So, you know, that was my motivation. Yeah. So, but it's interesting because it does, you know, people get interested in you and you get some kind of, you know, reputation among worldly people for having been an adventurer and, you know, done all these exciting things. But in the end of the day, so what? Yeah? When those people come to you, what do they come to you for? I'm going to Nepal. What hotel should I stay in? Yeah. Can I borrow your, what's that book we all had? Lonely Planet. Yeah. Can I borrow your Lonely Planet? Yeah, that's the only way we influence those people, really, is in quite a worldly way, because that's what they want. Whereas here, you know, if we have real tranquility because we've actually controlled our senses and we're a peaceful, composed person, then, you know, there's a better chance of being able to influence people in a positive direction. Okay. So we, you know, we use our speech to create harmony. We don't gossip a lot. We don't create disharmony. we have such sneaky ways of creating disharmony. You know, we're so sneaky. We don't want to say, how to say it? We don't want to say directly that such and such happened. So we kind of say by the side that somebody just kind of did something. Just giving like a little tidbit of information so that then the other person goes, oh, what did you say? What are you talking about? Tell me the story. What's going on? And then, because the other person asked us, we just spew out the whole story, which creates disharmony between people. Yeah? But we don't want to, are you getting what I'm saying? We don't want to look like we're overtly gossiping and creating disharmony. But we just say something in a certain way that then somebody asks. And then, of course, they're asking, we have to tell them. So we create a lot of disharmony that way. Yeah. And then, of course, if people are smart, which they eventually get smart, sometimes it takes them a few years, then whenever we say things, they don't listen after that. Because they know that we're trying to kind of instigate something. Okay? So, especially, how we use our speech, if we're really careful with that, then then people will respect us. And you can see that. I mean, for me, as soon as somebody starts bad-mouthing somebody else to me, I automatically step back from that person because I know that it's only going to be a matter of time before then they bad-mouth me to other people. Because if that's their habit, to criticize a lot, it doesn't matter who it is. Yeah. So I have like a little alarm that goes off that says, don't tell this person too much. Don't get too close, because they'll start talking about you behind your back, saying nasty things, because that's what they're doing about somebody else to you. Okay? So this is about, subduing our own body, speech, and mind, and therefore having an ambience of tranquility. Yeah. And you can tell, some of our teachers, when you go in their presence, yeah, you can feel the tranquility there. It's quite obvious. Yeah? They're not going, oh, I'm just so exhausted. What a day, They're much more tranquil and peaceful. And so as a result, we respect that. Then 138, by being wise, your mind will not waver, not dependent on the opinion of others. You will be steadfast, kind, and not deceived. Therefore, devote yourself to wisdom. Okay, so this is the fourth quality to train in. And here it's wisdom. And here, it's not just talking about Dharma wisdom. It's talking about being able to think for yourself and to be able to think clearly, to discern between good and bad, to discern what's appropriate and inappropriate, to differentiate what to practice and what to abandon. And if we can think clearly about other things, then we avoid, first of all, confusion. And we all know what it's like to be confused. We're just sitting there, we're the turkey on the fence with Thanksgiving approaching. Should I do this? Should I be on this side of the fence? Should I be on that side of the fence? I'm so confused. I don't know what to think. And then we look around for somebody else to tell us what to do, because we can't think for ourselves. And then we leave ourselves completely open to the influence of others, and sometimes the people who influence us are not so wise themselves, or they have an agenda. But when we're confused, we'll very often either listen to anything or listen to nothing. Okay? I'm so confused, I don't know what to do. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Yeah? And we get everybody's opinion. And of course everybody has a different opinion. And then, then we're even more confused than before. I've seen people, even in the Dharma world, they go from one teacher to the next, asking for the same advice. And of course, every teacher gives them different advice. Then they get really confused. Some of these people do it until they find the teacher that tells them what they want to hear. So they already know what they want to do, but they're just finding somebody else to put the rubber stamp on it. Okay. Which isn't so nice either. They waste a lot of people's time. Yeah? But then other people say, well, this person told me to do this Lama told me to do that Rinpoche said to do this one, this Geshe said do that, then this one recommended I go here, this one recommended I go there, then you're just completely in a muddle. Okay, more confused. Or what you do is somebody, says something and you just latch onto it without any discriminating wisdom at all and follow it. Yeah? Oh, my parents said do this. Well, yes, I'll do it because, boy, if I can please mom and dad, it gets them off my back. But, what advice are mom and dad giving you? Is it Dharma advice or is it worldly advice? Okay? Or sometimes in that confused state, we don't listen to anybody. We become what I call a yes but person. You know those people? Please, what do you think about this? Somebody says something. Yes, but. Well, what do you think about this? And the person gives a response. Yes, but. Spare me. Okay? So what he's saying here is we've got to learn to think clearly. Because when we can think clearly, and learning how to think clearly comes from learning the Dharma. When you really know the Dharma and you've studied, okay, what are things to practice? What things are things to avoid? And when you've actually thought about those things in depth, not just heard them and said, yes, I believe, but actually thought about them, then you develop some wisdom inside yourself, which gives you the ability to come to your own conclusion. This does not mean that you don't listen to anybody. Wise people listen to a lot of people, but they make their own decision. Okay? So that's the thing that he's saying here, that, if we don't know how to listen correctly, if we don't know how to think correctly, then we are not immune, or put it this way, we're very receptive to misleading advice. Yeah? And then we become very dependent on other people who may or may not have wisdom to tell us what to do. Okay? So he is basically saying that having sharp wisdom is very important in both Dharma and in practical matters. Yeah? Because it enables us to think, to use reasoning, to think logically, to understand things, and to be clear-minded. Yeah? And I think, have you ever met, I've known a lot of people. We have some people coming in here who, they're all over the place. You don't know what in the world they're doing. You know who I'm thinking about. Yeah? We have one young man who comes and it's like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to do that. Everywhere, He's all over the world. And, quite lost. Actually, it's very sad. We get quite a number of applications to come here by people who are quite lost. Not all of you see that because Venerable Samten and I deal with it ourselves, but it really prompts you to make a lot of prayers for people who are really, really lost. Yeah? And they need a place to live by Tuesday, and can they come here and ordain? Yeah? So, very sad. Okay, 139. So that here he's summing up. Truth, generosity, tranquility, and wisdom. A king who has these 4 excellent qualities will be praised by celestial beings and humans, just like these 4 excellent dharmas. Okay, so honesty builds trust and cooperation. Generosity enables people to connect with you in a really beautiful way, and it also fulfills their needs. Tranquility, gained by restraining our senses and being mindful of our body, speech, and mind, brings a dignified demeanor which other people automatically respect. And wisdom that can discriminate what to practice and what to abandon enables us to make wise decisions with confidence without being influenced by misleading companions. Okay, so anyone who cultivates these 4 qualities will be praised by gods and celestial beings, and these qualities clearly are important for leaders and who influence many people. And we're all leaders in some way. You may be a leader in your bowling club or your bonsai growing club or your, learning hieroglyphics club. We're all leaders in some way or another, and so we can influence other people well if we develop these qualities. Then 140, wisdom and dharma always increase in a monarch or a king who consults with those who are restrained in speech and pure and possess undefiled wisdom and compassion. So here he's talking about another thing that a leader, and by extension all of us, need. And here it's called a special friend, okay? And here special friends has a special meaning, okay? So if we want to continually develop our wisdom and our virtue, we need to rely on good companions, on good friends. And Nagarjuna outlines 4 qualities of such friends, okay? So in addition to all the good qualities that he's been speaking about so far. So first of all, a really good friend is honest, and their speech is restrained. And you might look in the Sigalovada Sutra, and I quoted it in Taming the Mind. Yeah, Taming the Mind. It's a sutra where the Buddha outlines different relationships between people, and he talks about the qualities of a good friend. And here he's talking just to householders, So he says stuff like, a good friend is someone who's not going to lead you to go drinking and drugging and gambling, and watching porn. A good friend is going to take you in the other direction. So, this kind of practical advice. So here's such advice too, okay? So first of all, good companions, people that are honest and who have restrained speech, okay? And a monarch or a leader does not need somebody who's going to flatter them and tell them that they're a good leader when in fact what they're doing is making bad policy decisions and harming people. Okay? And a leader really has no use for people who sing their praises and say, oh, everybody loves you, everybody loves what you're doing, when in fact everybody's complaining and he's quite unpopular. Okay? So, when you're in a position of leadership, you need people who, with a good motivation, can speak to you directly and frankly and tell you what's going on. You don't need people who sing your praises and flatter you to get your attention and your praise. I mean, think about it. And here's where, when I think about it, I realize, I'm so stupid, so foolish sometimes. Somebody, praises me, I'll do anything you want. You think I'm wonderful? I think you're great. And I just do whatever they want. Somebody tells me my faults, and they may be somebody who's really wise, and they're saying it because they care, but because they're telling me my faults, I don't want to hear it. Go away. Okay? So, this kind of attitude on our part makes us completely foolish and leaves us totally open to, all sorts of people manipulating us. Okay? But, so that's from the foolishness on the side of the leader. On the other hand, from the foolishness on the side of the friend, supposed friend, they're actually trying to coochie up to the leader to get some favorite, to be the favored, to get more better from themselves, or to avoid saying something unpleasant whereby the messenger might get blamed. So they just say wonderful things that are big lies. And then, if you're in a leadership position, that just leads you down the slippery slope because you're not getting correct information and you're being totally deceived. Okay. Are you getting what I'm saying? Yeah? Okay. So, really good friends are those people who tell us when they think we're making a mistake and who give us good counsel and give good advice, even if it's something unpleasant to our ears. Yeah? So we should listen to good advice even when we don't like it. Yeah? It's the same as we should take medicine even when it doesn't taste good. Yeah? If we refuse to take medicine because it doesn't taste good, or we refuse to have, some procedure done because it hurts, then who's going to suffer in the end? Okay. So second quality of such friends is that they're content and they have few desires. Yeah. So they're not always trying to get something from us. They're not looking out just for themselves, but they're satisfied and content. That's also a quality of somebody who is suitable to do serenity meditation. Yeah? To be content and few desires. Third quality, they possess wisdom and intelligence regarding both the Dharma and worldly affairs. So that enables them to give sound advice. Okay, so you have to have some knowledge and wisdom about things to give good advice. Alex, my friend Alex, told me the story of when he once asked Serkham Rinpoche, the previous Serkham Rinpoche, because Alex, was living in Dharamsala and he was having problems with his landlord and he didn't know what to do, with the landlord. So he asked Rinpoche. And Rinpoche said, go ask a lawyer, I don't know. Yeah? So that kind of good friend will tell you, go ask this person, I don't know. Yeah? People who aren't such good friends, they'll make up this and that and whatever. Okay? So, yeah. We need people who are knowledgeable in the area that we're asking advice about. And then fourth, these special friends, or these good friends, really wish to help us, and they don't get angry easily. Okay? So they're sincere and compassionate towards us, and they also have some fortitude, and so if we behave like babies, they're not going to just say, forget you and stomp out. Okay? So it's hard to find people who don't get angry at all, but at least, somebody who's not super irritable and always flying off the handle. So, when we look at these four qualities, shall we review them? Okay? So they're honest and restrained speech. Okay? They're content with few desires. They have wisdom and intelligence, and they deeply wish to benefit and are not easily angered. So we want to look out for people like this as good companions to hang around, and we want to develop those four qualities in order to be a good friend, a reliable companion to other people. Okay. It's difficult to be content and have few desires, isn't it? Yeah? When we look at other people, part of our mind is always thinking, what can I get out of them? Yeah? What do they have that I don't? Maybe they have money, maybe they have material things, but maybe they know somebody that I would really benefit from. Maybe they could introduce me. Maybe they're well connected. Or maybe they're kind of well known in this group, so if I hang out with them, I'll get a special reputation because I know them and they have high status in this group. Yeah? And we're always looking out for how we can benefit from something. And at the same time, yeah, we're friendly and we're kind. But if we can get some little benefit out of that. You know what I mean? Yeah?
In the outside world, it's called networking.
It's called what? Networking. Oh, yeah, exactly. It's called networking. Yeah? Yeah. It's not called being selfish and manipulative. It's called networking. Yeah. Okay. So the reason, for choosing good friends is, not only that they give us advice and things like that, but also that we will become like them. Our parents used to say, birds of a feather flock together. Yeah. And so, all the turkeys hang out together, and all the blue jays hang out together, and all the robber birds hang out together, and all the chickadees. I haven't seen them. Are they around? Oh, that's why. Where's the bird feeder?
It's
Okay. Yeah, so the chickadees and nuthatches, they hang out together. Yeah, so we become like the people we hang out with. So it's really important to check out who we hang out with. And, we do prison work. And one of the first things we write to people who are about to be released is, don't go back and see your old friends. Develop a whole new set of friends. Yeah, I mean, that's really a very important key to being able to stay out once you're released. Okay. And then Khensa Rinpoche said something very interesting here. I'll read this to you, because I was quite touched by what he said. He said, at present, with all our heart, we want our practice to be excellent. We sincerely want to relinquish all that is adverse to higher rebirth and highest good, and to adopt everything that is in accord with them. Yeah. But since we are ordinary beings, that wish is still not stable in us, and we don't have much control over our thoughts and our mind, thoughts and our actions. For this reason, it is especially important that we keep our distance from misleading companions and associate with good friends. So here he told this, people quite directly, you have beautiful aspirations, but your mind isn't stable. Nobody likes to hear their mind isn't stable. But out of compassion, he said that, look, your mind's not stable. So it's very important to be wise and careful. Yeah. Okay, 141. Those who speak beneficially are rare. Even more rare are those who listen. And more rare yet than these are those who quickly implement something beneficial. Then 142, having realized that though unpleasant it is helpful, quickly put it into practice, just as a prudent person, in order to become healthy, takes medication even though it is noxious. Okay. So those who speak beneficially are rare. That's true, isn't it? Not a lot of people speak beneficially. Yeah. Even more rare are those who listen. Yeah. Because we all like to talk. And even when we listen, do we listen to good advice? Or do we listen to gossip? Good question, huh? Okay. And then, even more rare than that, are those who quickly implement something beneficial. So, it's hard for people who speak to find people who speak beneficially. It's hard to be a person who listens well. But even when we listen well, do we put into practice what's beneficial immediately? Or even not immediately? Yeah. Or do we implement something that is beneficial for us? Or are we distracted, too busy doing other things, lazy, it takes too much energy, afraid that we might lose something? Yeah. Or sometimes, actually, we're too proud. Somebody gives us very good advice, but, we're too arrogant to listen and to admit that, what this person is saying is true. Yeah? And you find that sometimes, when people are really starting to go down the slippery slope, other people may say things to them and boy, they don't want to listen. When a person's just starting to go downhill, sometimes you can grab them. They'll listen. Once they're partway downhill and they're stuck in their wrong way of thinking, they're much more difficult to get through to them. Yeah? And then, from what the guys who I write to who are in prison tell me, it's not until you completely crash at the bottom that you actually wake up and start listening. So let's not be that person who has to crash at the very bottom to listen to anybody. Okay. 143. You should always reflect upon the impermanence of life, health, and political power. Yeah. That way, you will, with true effort, strive uniquely to practice the Dharma. Okay? So here, he's recommending, meditation on impermanence and death, saying, well, right now, everything's good, you're healthy, you're happy, things in the kingdom are going relatively well, there's no rebellions anywhere, your treasury is full, it looks good, but all of these things can change on a dime, and you need to be aware of that and be prepared in the sense of not clinging on to the present situation, not taking it for granted, but really using the present situation and being flexible so that when the situations change, when conditions are different, being flexible to be able to change with them. Okay? And that goes for, when we get sick and when we die. And so I think about that, because someday it's going to happen, isn't it? Either we're going to go to the doctor and get some kind of, hear something that we don't like to hear. And then we're going to have to change our life. We won't be able to keep doing things the way we kept doing them before because the body's not working. Yeah? Or maybe the mind's not going to work so well. Yeah, we'll have to change in that way. Or maybe there's an accident. Or, we all take for granted, we live in a fairly peaceful country compared to other places, but also that could change very quickly. Yeah? I was just thinking, more than out-of-country terrorists, I'm afraid of the ones in the country who are the armed anti-government militias, that who knows what they're going to do. So, and we don't know. And so sometimes I think, because I've done a lot of reading about Chinese history, and people had a very, very good life, and then Kuomintang had, how much, there was, a war going on for a long time in Japanese invasion and so on. But maybe they lived in a certain enclave where they weren't exposed to it. And then suddenly the whole government fell and, the communists took over and their lives changed drastically. Yeah. Or, in Indonesia in 1998, there were riots and Suharto had to resign. And people who had investments there, they lost most of their stuff, unless they were really quite skillful. Yeah? So all this stuff that we just take for granted, come, go, go, as Lama used to say. So, he's advising us not to be smug, not to have blinders on, but also not to be anxious and fearful. Yeah? So we tend to either get smug and complacent or anxious and fearful, and neither of those is a very helpful attitude towards reality. Yeah? It's like, okay, don't take the present situation for granted, but also don't start creating horror stories about what may never happen. That's equally as ridiculous. Okay. So then we actually shift to another subject. So let's pause here, maybe questions and discussion. Yeah.
Back in verse 137, we were talking about how does it do our three doors, and I have binding the doors to the senses, but somehow I must be there too.
Okay, so binding your sense doors, that's physically. Then verbally, being aware what we're saying, restraining our speech, speaking only when necessary, and speaking wisely and kindly about appropriate topics. And then mentally, being aware of where our thoughts are going, and not just letting the mind go on and on. Yeah. Yeah.
Last week you were talking about the 5 benefits that come from practicing the Dharma. And the third one, by practicing non-violence in this life, you'll be free from fear, and neither human beings nor spirits will have reason to harm you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that sounded okay last week, before we started talking about remembering Martin Luther King, and then all of these other people who have, lost their lives, and they're very beneficial lives, and this kind of dies in the face of what we know about karma.
Yeah, okay.
Literally, obviously.
Yeah. So in
127.
verse 127, let's take a look at that. Where did it go?
Also gain 5 benefits.
Yeah. Okay. Through Dharma you will attain fame and pleasure. You will have no fear now or at death. And in the next world you will have great joy. So always devote yourself to the Dharma. And so having no fear now means, as it was described, that, by practicing nonviolence in this life, you're free of fear from other human beings and spirits. And then saying, but we just also talked about Martin Luther King and all these other people who practiced nonviolence, and Gandhi and so on, who got killed. Okay, so the meaning here is you practice that in this life. As we all know, the karmic results don't always ripen in this life. A lot of times they ripen in future lives. So if someone got killed, even though they're practicing nonviolence, it's because of a previously created negative karma that had not been purified. But in general, we also know that if somebody is nonviolent, in general, people are more attracted to them and don't desire to harm them. Yeah? So, in general that's the case, but somebody could have some kind of special karma that when it ripens, it cuts their life short. Okay?
I also wonder, it doesn't say if you practice nonviolence, you won't die. If you practice nonviolence, you won't have fear.
Yeah. Right. Right, that's true. It doesn't say if you practice nonviolence, you won't die. But, but it's true, if you practice nonviolence, then you're not so fearful of other people.
And I mean, I must assume there was tremendous, I mean, for sure there was tremendous courage in somebody like Dr. King.
Yeah.
Who knew that he was violating people's, I mean, the social status quo?
Yeah. But even with Gandhi, you saw how Gandhi, he wasn't afraid. You know, he just went into all sorts of situations because the nonviolence was so strong within him, I think, and that thing of thinking about others, putting others before self. That, you know, when you're really thinking nonviolently and putting others before yourself, then you're not going to be afraid. I saw one movie of Mother Teresa once, and they showed a clip of when she was in Lebanon talking about how to get some refugees or somebody out of Lebanon. And she's talking to the people in the middle of this war, some of the people who were doing this war, and there were bombs falling around. But she went there to talk about how to get these other people out. And I would have been terrified. But her mind was thinking more about the benefit of others, and so there was not the fear. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Martin's last speech, he said, "I fear no man." He said, "I may not get there with you," and he was well aware that his life was threatened.
Yeah.
He made a point of saying that he was not afraid.
Yeah. Yeah, so he was aware that there was danger to his life, but he wasn't afraid of it. He wasn't walking around like, yeah. And he didn't have to pack heat to not be afraid. You know, his compassion made him fearless. Mm-hmm.
That was actually one of the things that got me as I was reflecting on these verses this week, is that we think to be safe, to be free from fear, to have joy, we have to accumulate things, we have to have guards, we have to have guns or whatever. And the fact of the matter is we have these things very naturally just by living virtuously.
Mm-hmm.
They just, that's the result. And that really got to me this week.
Yeah.
In that way, rather than trying to have things and accumulate and set up the environment to be just so.
Yeah. And also, the mind that feels like you have to defend what you have is a mind of fear. Yeah. When I go to Latin America, you know, the houses, they all have incredible gates on them, barbed wire around the outside, kind of like fortresses, because the people are very afraid of thieves. Yeah. So it's you know, it's sad when, you know, having property makes you fearful of losing the property. Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that people that act violently, think to act violently,
Mm-hmm.
that's how they think other people are going to respond.
Exactly.
Same with the people that steal. They expect other people to steal.
Mm-hmm.
So they're always looking for that.
Yeah.
That's how they think.
Right. So you've observed from your own experience that people who steal assume other people are going to steal too, and they're always on the lookout for people who are going to take their stuff. And people who are violent assume other people are going to be violent, so they're always on the lookout to protect themselves. Okay? So this is something we can see just in our regular life. But this also explains the karmic results of certain things. Yeah? When they talk about, you know, people who are born fearful, why are they born fearful? It's from having malicious thoughts. It's from being violent in previous lives. There's a karmic cause here. Yeah? And so similarly, you know, people who steal, you know, they're born in situations where other people take their stuff, or even where the environment is very dry and the environment doesn't give them anything. And you can see how it's related to that state of mind, because you're like that, you create that situation on the outside too. Yeah? So the violent person is going to have a lot of fear and suspicion and a lot of enemies. Yeah? And the thief is going to worry a lot about their stuff and probably have a lot of people who steal their stuff too. Yeah? So there's this kind of result between what goes on in our mind and the actions we perform, and then what we think about, what kind of personality or thoughts we have. Mm-hmm.
I have been thinking about generosity the past 2 days or so, and how hard it is. And the times I get this real strong feeling in my mind that the times that I was able to be generous without any thought, just the delight in giving, without anything coming back and doing it for any ulterior motive. During the exchange and walking away, there were moments where I actually felt absolutely no scarcity in my life whatsoever.
Yeah.
It was like everything was just copacetic. I mean, there was no missing, there was no dissatisfaction, there was no sense of any scarcity whatsoever. My mind was full of so much joy. It doesn't last very long. It could go on for 2 hours. If I did it with that kind of open-hearted, unconditioned kind of,
Yeah.
sheer delight. But they're few and far between, but it's so profound, the memory of what that felt like.
Yeah.
That, it's really quite profound to have it when I do.
Okay. So thinking about generosity has made you remember the few times when you've been able to give without any fear of poverty for yourself. Yeah. That's why in the mandala, the inner offering, it says, my mind just went blank, but it talks about it there, without any feeling of loss, that if I give, then I won't have. Yeah. And when the mind completely doesn't care about that, and there's a real sense of satisfaction and a feeling of plenty in the mind, how joyful it is. Mm-hmm.
What advice do you have for those that work with the public and everyone seems to be unhappy and always complaining? Having to engage them, how should I not get drawn into their mindset? What should I focus on to counteract that?
Okay, so you're dealing with the public, but everybody is complaining and unhappy, and so how do you keep from getting drawn into it, and how do you keep from getting angry at them? I think having a feeling of compassion and being able to do what they call some reflective listening, so where you can really tune in to what the other person's trying to express and offer some empathy, so because I know sometimes, when you have to call people on the phone because something isn't working well, and you got a new computer and it's not working, you have to call, or something, you have to return a plane ticket and they don't want to let you, or who knows what. But if you talk to somebody who says, like, oh, I get it, you want to, your plans changed and you want to return this plane ticket and you're wondering how to do it, and yeah, that makes complete sense, so let me see what I can do to help. And then you try and do what you can to help. But at the end you may have to say, I really tried everything I could do, but this is the company policy, and I can't go ahead of it. I can't negate it. Do you want to talk to my supervisor or something? But you present yourself as somebody who's trying to help the other person, instead of presenting yourself as, oh God, I know here's another person who's going to complain. Yeah? But if you think, oh, here's somebody I can try to help. You know, somebody's unhappy with something, how can I help them? You know, we had a friend who worked at the customer service department, that's what they call it, of Amazon. And I remember he asked that same question, you know. And really, truly, if you try to help the other person, they will be so grateful, even if you can't succeed in doing what they want. The fact of your being on their side, they feel happy about. Whereas if you just, sorry, we can't do that, shut up and stop complaining, bye, you know, then you're miserable and so are they. Uh-huh.
Also works from the other side that when you're going to call and you want to get some help, if you have the idea that you're going to talk to somebody that's kind and that they're going to help and listen, you have a better chance of getting that.
Right.
If you have this idea, it's too simple.
Yeah, it's very true. If you call and you have the idea you're going to talk to somebody who's kind and helpful, then your chances are you'll bring that out of the other person. And also on those kind of calls, or dealing with them, up front, if you're a kind and pleasant person, then yeah, people want to help you. And I remember when we moved here, one of the advices that someone gave me was go into the county and ask for their help. Instead of assuming that the county is going to say, no, 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 you can't do this, you can't do that, go in and say, we want to do this. Please help us to do it. And she said, if you do that, they will help you. And that's really been our experience. Yeah? And they have helped us. And I think they're rather startled that people actually go in and ask for help. Yeah. Well, yeah, this is our public health official who had to wear a bulletproof vest when he went out to inspect places because some of the libertarian people wanted to chase him off the land. But we went to see him on a Friday afternoon, yeah, and we said that, we just bought the place and we want to do this and this and help us and what's allowed. And he became one of our best friends. I mean, now he's moved away and his wife moved to Idaho, but we're still in touch with them. And, he said, I was at my wit's end that Friday afternoon. I was going crazy with all these people. And then you came in and said, please help me. And I just was like blown away. Yeah, because he said usually everybody comes in, why are you asking me to do this? Why won't you let me do that?